My story is going to be a little different than you might think. The way I got here was the way I got here was sort of a roundabout tale. So I was just graduated from high school, just like most of you, and I'm no direction, no focus. I signed up to go to college, and in order to go to college, I needed to work that summer to pay for tuition. I grew up in a very poor family. I had 5 sisters and mother, and we just made things work. There was no college graduates in the family or anybody that ever attended any further school. So anyway, got a job. I was in Colorado at the time, and got a job making enough money to pay for my tuition. Went off to school, and because I still had to work during the day, I figured I'd go to night school. So signed up. I got a little late to registration, so they gave me some coursework with Marketing 401, so that's a senior level course, Econ 201, which is a sophomore level second part of the course. I got all the worst courses you can imagine. I went to the classes. The professor said there's a midterm and a final, and you don't need to show up for the lectures. That's all you had to tell me. Threw the books in the back seat of the car, and I'm off partying. And I partied pretty well. And end of the semester came, and it was around December. I got my letter that said I got a 131 average, and a letter from the draft board that says you're signed up. And I got a Dear John letter from my girlfriend. I lost my driver's license for drag racing all in 1 week. So life was real good for me. So I thought, I went down to the recruiter and I talked to him, and he said, if you just sign up for another year, we can get you some training and you end up with a trade. I said, oh, that sounds good to me. Okay, so I signed up. Off to basic training. I went through basic training, and my job next when I went off to my next assignment was advanced infantry training. So there's my new trade. This is the peak of Vietnam, 1969. So I was in an infantry battalion, and I remember my drill instructor saying, look to your left, look to your right, one of you won't be back. And I looked at the guy on the left and I said, I'm sorry for you, pal. So as luck would have it, 4 of our guys in our battalion, which is a large group of soldiers, were chosen to go to a leadership preparation course. It was just dumb luck because they would pick you, and you'd go off. And you'd go off for 2 weeks, you'd break cycle, and you learn to fold your underwear real tight, polish the floors in your shoes, and make a bed. You go back, I went back to my battalion, and they gave the assignments, and the whole battalion was going to Vietnam. And the 4 of us that went to leadership preparation school broke cycle, so they couldn't send us, so they retrained us as typists. So, needless to say, I became a Raider O'Reilly of the military, and I went to Germany, spent 2.5 years in Germany, and I was on the ski patrol in the winter and played fast pitch softball in the summertime. This was at the peak of Vietnam. So I thought, hey, this isn't a bad idea being in the service. I had a great time. Vietnam was winding down, so they offered a program to get out of the service early if you'd go back to college. So I got out, I signed up for a college, got accepted, and I got out and went back to school. I stopped at my sister's work. She worked for a dentist, and I stopped in to say hello, and he asked me what I was going to do. And I said, well, I'm going to go to Colorado Mountain College to get an associate's degree and get a job. And he says, is that really what you want to do? And I says, well, I've got to do something. So he said, did you ever think about going to medical school or dental school? And I says, no, I didn't know I could. Because I've never had any guidance about that. I didn't know anything. He said, well, give it a try. Why don't you give it a try? Think about it. And I says, well, if you had to do it all over again, would you still do what you do? And he says, yes, I will, or yes, I would, except that I'd go on to be an oral surgeon and study maxillofacial surgery. So I says, okay. I went down to the dental school that was just opening in Denver at the time, and I talked to the dean of the dental school. He sat down with me and he said, where did you go to college? And I says, I haven't yet. And he says, well, you got to go to college first. You got to take these courses, pass them with good enough grades to get accepted into dental school. Then you got to go through 4 years of dental school, get high enough grades to get accepted into a surgery program, of which you do your residency. So I said, okay. I went off to dental. He also recommended going to this college in Southern Colorado that's got a high placement rate for medical, dental, and vet school. So I went off to college, graduated with a 3.8 average in 2.5 years, and was in dental school 7 days later. At that point, I went through dental school, and I was accepted into surgery program in November, my senior year. So I was ahead of the game for that. And I got through on a GI Bill. Going through dental school, I couldn't afford the dental school at all, so I applied for a health profession scholarship program with the military, and I got both the Army scholarship and the Air Force scholarship. I opted for the Air Force scholarship because I've had enough of the Army. And then I went off, and that paid for all my school. So after I finished my surgery program, I had to go back and pay that debt back, which was a year for however many years they paid for your school. So they sent me to the Philippines, which was a fantastic assignment. I was like an island. I did a lot of scuba diving, I skydived, and I was a surgeon. So pretty cush life. I enjoyed it. I got transferred to Alabama. I spent 4 years down there at Air University, which is basically a country club in the Air Force. And then I went to California for about 6 years. I trained residents and I worked in a major hospital. And finally I went over to the East Coast. I worked in New Jersey and finally in Virginia until I retired. So at that point, that was 1999, I retired after 20-some years in the service and went into private practice with my partner that I did residency with. And I've been with him ever since, and we have 2 offices, one in Perrington, one in Brighton, and then I work at the hospital. Probably pulled some of your teeth in here, your wisdom teeth. If you're a patient of Dr. Halleck's, you will be mine. But anyway, the military, I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for the military. And I'm just thankful for the service and the ability to be able to see the world and travel. I would not trade one day of my life for what I did. And so that gives you guys an opportunity to look at the military from a different perspective. It can really help you out. So that's my story. Thank you.